Hello everyone, this is Kiwi Grounds Football, and I am here to review the A-League Women's 25-26 season. So first I'm going to start off by going over all the clubs that made it. They come in at 6th, we had Melbourne Victory. 5th, we had Adelaide. 4th, Brisbane Roar. 3rd, Canberra United. 2nd, the Wellington Phoenix. And at 1st, Melbourne City. So in case you weren't aware, I'm gonna flash it up on the schedule. The quarterfinals will be between Canberra United and Melbourne Victory, and Brisbane Roar and Adelaide. The highest seated team remaining will go up against the Wellington Phoenix, and the lowest ranked team remaining will go up against Melbourne City. So I wanted to go over some of the games that got us to this point, because there were some interesting results. Starting off, you had the Wellington Phoenix versus Adelaide. Going into this round, the Phoenix was 2nd and Adelaide were 4th, I believe. And it was a 2-0 win to the Wellington Phoenix, who basically just needed it to secure themselves a spot in the semi-finals. Canberra weren't going to overtake them otherwise, unless they just got a huge score, like a record-breaking scoreline, basically. Then you had Melbourne Victory versus Perth Glory. Perth, to the best of my knowledge, I'm going to check right now, but yeah, okay, they haven't had the greatest season. They finished 8th overall with 24 points, so they weren't. Yeah, okay, so they weren't really looking to make finals here, but I'm sure they would have liked a win. Melbourne Victory pulled themselves just a 1-0 victory that was able to push them right above the line. After that, we had the Mariners versus Sydney. Unfortunately, neither team was able to make it. I don't think either was necessary. Okay, this was big. This was bad for the Mariners. They finished 7th overall, and it seems this has cost them a finals appearance. Unfortunate for them. Had they gotten a win, they would have finished 5th overall. Would have had to go up against Canberra. After that, we had Canberra United versus the Brisbane Roar, and we had an upset with the Brisbane Roar getting a 2-1 victory over Canberra United. So Canberra, obviously their placement in the finals was pretty secure. It was more just, could they potentially get themselves to the semi-finals? But obviously it's been a big one for Brisbane, as this catapulted them to 3rd in the ladder. Yeah, if they had lost, it seems they would have actually missed out on finals. So that was a huge game. They would have missed out on finals, it looks like. And then finally, it was the Newcastle Jets versus Melbourne City. Melbourne City don't really have anything to play for. But at this point, they'd already. I think when the Phoenix lost to the Mariners the previous round, they'd already secured themselves the premiership. But either way, can't frown at a win, can you? From here, I want to give my predictions as to how I think the finals will go. Hey, so I actually get these next two games mixed up. So what I was looking at this, which I forgot again. Basically, it has Canberra and Brisbane switched around when they shouldn't be. Like Canberra is 3rd and Brisbane is 4th. So rather than reading off this, I was looking at this so I can like see the remaining, like the last 5 games to kind of help educate my pick. But just know that generally my picks still stay the same. I think Brisbane's going to beat Adelaide. I think Canberra is going to beat Melbourne Victory. Those don't change. I will interject with my updated on the semi-finals. Starting off, we have the Melbourne Victory versus the Brisbane Roar. It seems like the obvious pick to go for the 3rd place team. However, you know, they're coming off a win against Canberra United, who themselves were in a strong position, and they're currently coming off 3 wins. Victory in their last 3 are 2 wins and 1 loss. I suspect it will be the Brisbane Roar going up against the Wellington Phoenix. Then, I guess more interestingly, Canberra versus Adelaide. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm gonna have to go with Canberra. However, just because Adelaide have ended the season in very poor form. They're coming off 3 consecutive losses and a draw before that. That's just not good enough form if you want to push for finals. I highly suspect that the semi-finals will look like Melbourne City versus Canberra and Wellington versus Brisbane. Okay, interjecting again. So, as I said in the subtext, I'm predicting Canberra versus Phoenix and Brisbane versus Melbourne City. Honestly, my picks don't really say the same. I think Melbourne City and Wellington Phoenix go through. Honestly, I feel more confident in these picks just because I'm more confident in Wellington's ability to defeat Canberra than I am Brisbane. And additionally, I still think Melbourne City is just too strong for even an in-form Brisbane Roar. So yeah, I still think the finals will be between the Wellington Phoenix and Melbourne City. Outside of that, I don't believe there'll be any upsets here as well. To be honest, I think you can expect the Wellington Phoenix and Melbourne City to go through. I do actually want to talk about the Phoenix women for a sec. I am a bit unsure. The Wellington Phoenix women, in my opinion, have been the biggest underachievers. Again, not the biggest, that's actually exaggeration, but I feel like they've underperformed this season, which sounds crazy to say when you consider that they're 2nd on the ladder. However, I feel like they really should have won the premiership, to be honest. You know, it was a slow start to the season, but you know, they managed to pick up a lot of momentum, and it's just in those final rounds when they picked up, first of all, a 1-0 loss to the Western Sydney Wanderers. That is not acceptable for how well the Phoenix were doing this season. The Wanderers are 2nd last on the ladder at the moment, and I do feel that's just a team you should be winning against. And even against the Mariners, while they weren't necessarily the worst, they had they had themselves a week. Is it the Mariners? Hold on, I have to double check. Okay, yeah, so it was against the Mariners and the Wanderers, who they dropped points against. You shouldn't be losing to teams like that, especially if you're going for a title charge. It's not acceptable, in my opinion, to be losing those matchups. And that's why I'm a bit hesitant. I don't like that their form has dropped off near the end. Obviously, they got a good win against Adelaide, who again, they were 4th ranked 4th at the time, but it's very concerning stuff. Despite that, however, I do believe the Wellington Phoenix women have what it takes to push through to their first ever grand final. I just think they have enough quality. I'm just not 100% sold. And then obviously that takes us to the grand final. Who will win the Melbourne City Women's or the Phoenix Women? As a fan of New Zealand football, I want to say the Phoenix can pull it off. However, they've not been successful against the Melbourne City Women. I'm gonna have a look. Okay, yes, I've double checked. So these two sides have met twice already. The first result was a 1-0 victory for Melbourne City, and the second one was a 2-1 win for Melbourne City. And that's what's giving me pause. The fact that they've already won obviously will make a good comeback story, but I favour Melbourne City to win, although I do think though they've kind of underperformed in my mind, I still think they have the quality to do it. So yeah, that's my prediction. Melbourne City to be champions of Australia. Anyway, this has been my opinion. Obviously, this isn't universal. Feel free to let me know if you agree, do you disagree, is there anything else I should have touched on? And I suppose I'll see you another time. The A-League men ends later this month, so I'll later do a similar video for them whenever that happens. Anyway, see ya.